Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And I have to tell you, as someone who left South Africa in 1986 and came to Australia, the apartheid government, the Nationalist Party, they put huge restrictions on how much money you could take out of the country. As a family, I was married back then, we could only take out 15,000 rand. That's 5,000 rand. That was it. That's all we could ever take out. Anything else we had left in the country was locked up. Of course, we could take our furniture, which we did. But when it came to the actual getting money out the country, forget it. They had their dirty paws all over it. And when I say dirty paws, they were doing that to protect the economy of South Africa. Go ahead. About 30 years. 2019. And guess what? If you want to move money offshore right now, you can do it. I'm not sure of the exact amount, but I believe it's over R1 million per person, per year or something like that. But I'm sure in the comments below you'll correct me if I'm wrong. But you can move a huge amount of money offshore legally under the ANC government. Now think about this. There's a huge amount of money that is now being moved out of South Africa, and I'll show you the video that confirms this after this intro. Now, who are the people who are interested in moving their ill-gotten gains out of South Africa without breaking any laws? And here comes the point of difference. When I left in 1986, the politicians there were making very sure it's very hard for people to take their money out. But right now, the politicians under the ANC are making sure it's very easy for people to take money out. You know why? Guess who's moving money out right now? I'll start at the top. Ramaphosa, Ace Magashula, Jacob Zuma, you name it, they're all moving their money offshore into places like Dubai. Because when things really do go pear-shaped in South Africa, like the Guptas, they'll get on a plane and they'll be out of the country and they'll be fine, thank you very much. And they won't care what happens back in South Africa. So that in my view, is the only reason there's hardly any restriction on moving your money out of South Africa. And really, if you look at a plan B, you've got to be crazy not to move a huge chunk of your money into another safe currency like the US dollar or the Australian dollar or the British pound or whichever takes your fancy. Because the rand is on the point of collapse. There's absolutely no question about that. And when those politicians have moved all their money and they're ready to just pack their bags and go, guess what's going to happen? Try and get out of South Africa with 1,000 rand in your pocket. Good luck to you. Because they've cleaned up, they've got out, but now they're going to clamp down. So I'm just putting this out there. Here comes a video which tells you and confirms. The video earlier today talked about the brain drain. This is talking about the cash drain. The money that is just flowing out of South Africa. And that you're talking about the tax base of South Africa, which has been totally undermined. And without a tax base, you don't have a country. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for updates. and have a great day.
Many
Bye
South
for now.
Africans are taking their money out of the country, and that is to avoid getting entrenched in the dire state of the economy. Immigration experts say there's a 70% increase in inquiries from people who want to go abroad. But is the grass really greener on the other side? Joining me to answer that question is, of course, from our Cape Town studios, Sable International's Group Commercial Director, Andrew Risick. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. When I saw the number, 70%, of course, of an increase seen from people who want to go abroad, what really informs this decision?
Hi, Tumi. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a very complex set of circumstances, I think, that drive people to consider moving offshore, whether they first move their capital and make investments or whether they look to physically relocate. But I think the situation in South Africa is it's economic, predominantly. We all know the stories. South African, lots of companies are closing down, their job losses. The other thing is the political landscape, lots of political uncertainty. So people are feeling insecure and worried about their children's futures particularly. And then the third sort of area of concern is the sort of social circumstances. There's a lot of protest action, there's a lot of unrest, high crime rates. So it's personal security. That in itself is a big driver as well.
But in your opinion, Andrew, is this advisable to those who are considering this, given that they're obviously considering moving their funds, moving their families to regain citizenship or even residency outside the country due to the economy? Would you advise that?
It's a very daunting task to embark upon looking at moving a country, particularly if you're an established business person or in a job with children. And I wouldn't say that people should leap. You've really got to look before you leap. The grass is definitely not always greener on the other side. When you're at home, you're in an environment that's very familiar and you know how things work, and it's easier to make good business decisions or good career decisions. But equally, if you are looking to move, you need to make sure that you're moving for the right reasons. And if you're looking for second citizenship, for instance, through investment, don't put yourself under pressure financially. There are lots of countries as well that are very short of skills that a lot of South Africans have. So there are countries that are hunting in our waters for our skilled people, nurses, plumbers, electricians, etc., not always professional people. And if there's something that gives them light at the end of the tunnel, then they are going to seriously go and consider it, especially if they're young. And I think the thing we need to be aware of is lots of people are making plan Bs for their children, not necessarily for themselves. So they're moving their funds offshore and possibly getting access to second residencies and citizenships. And that's probably going to we'll see a longer term effect when their children one day finishing studying don't come back and work in the job market in South Africa and contribute to the fiscus by paying tax here. So I think that's a longer-term problem we have.
Now, personally, of course, a decision that is made for your family or one's children, but definitely would have a knock-on effect on the economy. How do you think this will affect the South African economy just in general?
Well, I think there are two things. I mean, all governments around the world are competing for capital. I'm talking about financial capital. And the other thing all governments want is they need taxpayers. And that is something that many countries have realized globally after the crisis of 2008. They're looking to try and rebuild their economies. And they're creating some really interesting incentives for people from all over the world, whether they come with money or whether they come with skill. So in answer to your question, if South Africans have enough of a push factor to actually consider leaving, it's going to have a devastating effect on our economy longer term because, A, we're going to lose capital, which we're seeing at a relatively alarming rate of private capital leaving the country. And then the other thing is, and I think more importantly, is a lot of skilled people leaving and a lot of young skilled people. And, that's a long-term problem.
It's interesting you mention that because we're about to have a conversation on an alarming rate of engineers also leaving the country due to greener pastures. But let's now talk about some of the top residency and citizenship options, Andrew, that we're seeing, inquiries or queries being made. Which cities, which countries are people or are South Africans making inquiries about?
There are various programs. I mean, you've got to differentiate between residency and citizenship. Most countries, in order to acquire citizenship, one needs to go and spend probably a minimum of 5 years actually as a legal resident in those countries. So programs like Portugal, you can make an investment for for anywhere from 280,000 euros up to 500,000 euros, and that will give you and your family legal residence. The advantage there is you don't necessarily need to leave South Africa and go and live there. It's more of a plan B. But there are people who are looking at programs where if you make a substantial investment in the region of 2.5 million euros, which is probably 35 million rand, it's an enormous amount of capital. But within 3 or 4 months, you will actually become a European citizen. And what that gives those type of people is immediate access to the European Union, where they can go and live and work anywhere there. And more importantly, that sort of access to world markets for their children.
All right then, Andrew, before I let you go then, however, for the South African government obviously to retain these South Africans, to continue making the country more attractive and to retain their funds in the country, where do you think top priority needs to be placed?
I think top priority needs to be have clear economic policies that are really investor friendly. You know, at the end of the day, everyone who lives in South Africa who's got capital, they live here because they enjoy this country. And if they had an opportunity to stay here and invest their capital and feel secure about the future, I don't honestly think they would look abroad. So first and foremost, make South Africa attractive to the people who live here to invest and look to attract foreign investment. So secure and clear economic policies.
All right, Saville International's Group Commercial Director, Andrew Rusick, thank you so much for your time.